Selected. Main record.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Bringing Light to Blindness. My name is Shelby Craig. Unfortunately, I don't have any guest speakers on the show tonight. Various things came up, and, generally, it tends to happen, when you have, one person's got to go this place, and, somebody's got to go there, and other people have to go here. But anyway, the show must go on, and so last episode I was telling you about some of the classes that the students of the Colorado Center for the Blind attend, and this week I am going to go into a little bit, I think over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to talk a little bit about, in more detail, about some of the classes. So I thought that this week I would start with technology. And so I wanted to talk about all of the various types of technology that the blind use. And you look around nowadays and you see cell phones and laptops and computers and all this technology. And some people wonder, can other people with disabilities or impairments use this kind of technology? And the answer is yes. Deep in the heart of your iPhone settings, there is actually an accessibility setting. Well, it's not just one setting, but it's a panel of different settings. And in the case of the blind, there is a screen reader on the Mac as well as the iPhone and on all Apple products called VoiceOver. And when this is activated, this allows a blind person, to interact with their cell phones. You can click on icons, take pictures, videos, and that's actually how I'm recording my podcast right now, but through the use of VoiceOver. And they have similar products. They have similar products on different devices. For example, Android. And the Galaxy has TalkBack, which is a similar feature to VoiceOver. There's magnification, there's built-in, and I find the iPhone is really accessible because of all of the features that it has for not just the blind, but the people who have hearing impairments and poor motor skills coordination. And, there's just all this different stuff that you can use with your cell phone, and the computer is no exception. On the Windows computer, we use a product called JAWS, and, there's several different screen readers for the blind out there that are accessible to the Windows computers, but the ones that are the most common are JAWS and NVDA, and the difference between the two, well, there's a few, but one of the key differences is that JAWS, when you buy JAWS, it takes a lot of money, and when you get NVDA, it's a free screen reading software that you can download online, and the company does ask for donations, but it's not mandatory if you buy the product. And so that's just a few things that, that's just a few things that blind people can use in their everyday life. And, that doesn't even entail the scope of what they can do with all of these things. It's not just, taking pictures and videos. Blind people can also watch movies. A lot of the movie theaters are starting to come out with headphones that describe the movie. So while there is dialogue and all of the regular music and whatnot that you would find in movies, in the background there is a narrator describing everything that's happening as the movie progresses. And for the deaf, there is closed captioning and subtitles, and it just varies depending on what accommodations you need. And accessibility has come a long way since a few years ago. It's progressed it's progressed a lot in recent years, and it's nowhere near perfect, but it does allow the blind and other people with disabilities to do things that wouldn't have been thought possible about 10 or 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, if you asked a blind person, you probably couldn't take pictures, and you couldn't do all of these things that you can do now. So just watching movies, taking videos and photos, all of these are possible due to the advancements in technology. And there's, as far as technology is concerned, there are other various devices that we can use, not just for all of these other things that I mentioned before, but also for reading and writing. For Braille users, I think I talked a little bit about Braille a couple of weeks ago, but Braille, just as a refresher, Braille is a system of 6 dots. There's a full cell, and then the dots are arranged 3 on either side. So it goes 1, 2, 3 on the left, and 4, 5, 6 on the right. And depending on the configuration of these dots, you can make various combinations that can form letters or symbols or any other contractions, as we call them. There are some short form words that can be used. For example, the word about would just be, the configuration for that in Braille is just AB. And Braille readers would take that to mean, oh, okay, that's the word about. And there's over 300 contractions in Braille. There's more than 5 or 6 different codes that you can use. And one of the things that we can do because of technology is we can actually hook a device to our computer via USB or Bluetooth that has, and this device has pins in it that can rearrange themselves into Braille dots. So when you look at the device, you can read the dots that are on the bottom, and you can use that to read books or complete assignments. I know when I was in high school, the way that I usually completed assignments was through my laptop. I would take it to and from school every day. But there are definite advantages and disadvantages to using different devices. For example, if you're more of a visual learner, you might want to have the Braille display, which is the device that I was just talking about, where you hook it up to your computer and then you see everything that's on the screen in Braille. It works with a second-hand screen reader, normally JAWS or VoiceOver, and it can have a lot of great functions. You can read books with it, or you can read your emails, or and it's just a very good thing to have if you're a visual learner. But those who are more audio learners would probably prefer to use the screen reader. And another connection that can be made between technology and Braille is how we write it. A long time ago, there used to be old antique Braille writers, and they used to have, they were very bulky, very heavy to carry around. And these Braille writers were very cumbersome, and they could be difficult to, sometimes the keys would stick when you tried to type Braille, and, it could break really easily. It could break really easily. But then the evolution of the Braille writer went to what we call the Perkins Braille writer, and that was a lot easier for blind people, but it was still very cumbersome to carry around. So they developed the slate and stylus. And basically what the slate and stylus, I will take a photo of it and upload it to Facebook and Twitter so that you can see. A slate and stylus is actually it's sort of like the equivalent of a paper and a pencil. It's a plastic, it can be either metal or plastic, but you can put the paper inside the slate, and you can use the stylus, it'll punch holes in the paper, because the grooves that are on the slate have different dots that you can push down, or different pins, I should say, that make the dots of the Braille cell. But for some Braille readers and writers, this can be a little bit more difficult to master, because when you read and write Braille, the normalcy of reading and writing Braille is from left to right. But with the slate, you're having to write backwards. You're writing from right to left, and it's backwards in all respect. Instead of dots 1, 2, 3 being on the left, they're on the right. So it's interchanged, which makes it very difficult for some blind readers and writers to master, myself included. And especially when you're trying to learn it at first, you're so used to seeing the dots the other way, 1, 2, 3 on the left, 4, 5, 6 on the right, that when you first start to master it, it can be really confusing, just because of the fact that you're writing from right to left in all respects. So that can be difficult, and that's why the Braille display has become so important now. They're starting to develop electronic note takers with Braille displays, and it's a lot less bulky to carry around. And even though the slate and stylus is really lightweight and portable, for those who don't have sufficient I shouldn't say talent, but those who don't have sufficient practice in using it, it's not really the best thing. And especially, in school, you've got papers to do and assignments to turn in, and you're not going to have the luxury of being able to spend hours and hours working with a slate and stylus. I mean, eventually, for those who do that, you get faster at it. But, for some, it's not really the best way to go. And so they're starting to use a lot of electronic note takers, and some Braille. And there's a lot of different Braille displays. There used to be one called the PacMate, which had its own built-in screen reader like JAWS. And before the PacMate, there was the Braille and Speak, which you could hook up to a computer via USB, and then the Braille that you type on that device could be sent to the computer, and then you could translate it into a Braille file and print it out in Braille using an embosser. And even though the embosser is still used, because of the evolution of Braille displays, it's it's gotten out. It's falling into disuse. And you still see it sometimes, but it's normally rarely or never that you will see someone using a Braille and Speak nowadays. So that's pretty much just a brief summary of the evolution of technology. And if anyone has any questions about what we've talked about, or anything that you want me to bring up on future podcasts, just let me know. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. My username on Facebook is V'ger2264, and and if you just type in Shelby Craig on Facebook, you'll see my email. It's Voyager2264@gmail.com. Just make sure that you introduce yourself when you send the email, because, if I get an email with no subject, I'm automatically going to think, oh no, what is this? And so just introduce yourself with all of your questions and comments, and let me know if there's anything else that you want me to bring up in future episodes. So until then, this is Shelby Craig signing off for the night, and I hope that all of my listeners have a wonderful week.